As soon as I left Gen Con, here are 5 games that I literally cannot stop thinking about.
I made the devil run. I gave him poison just for fun.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Wolfpack. Now a quick premise, number 5 is the only game on this entire list that I don't have B-roll for. Reason why is because it was hard for me to film this because there was a huge line every single time at the booth and I didn't want to like push my way through the crowd to like just get some footage. So bear with me for number 5, but I did get footage of the next 4. Also bear in mind that this is a very initial impression. I obviously don't own any of these games yet. A lot of these games aren't even out yet, but they are definitely games that you should put on your watch list. Now, let's start with number 5, which is Northgard. Now, I did talk about this one before going into Gen Con, and it definitely delivered when I got to see a glimpse of the gameplay at the convention. Northgard is a 4X game. That means you will be expanding the map, you'll be exterminating other players, you'll be exploring the land, and exploiting it as well for different resources. Hopefully I got all those right. What I found most interesting about this game is that it pushes you towards a specific path with different things that you are building and with the asymmetric factions, and it's also a deck builder, so different cards that you upgrade will also push you towards different paths as well. And I love being able to give players that flexibility in choosing the type of gameplay that you want to go for. The Goat Clan collects more food, the Ravens will scour the territories, and as they're flying off, they also exploit resources. You have the Wolves being super hyper aggressive, which is very on brand for what this is. And they love combat and are rewarded with more food as they are fighting different clans, because it is also an area control game as well, and you're trying to make sure that I think one of the winning conditions is to maintain control of 3 territories. So there are 7 different clan factions to choose from. And on top of this, you also can build different structures like I mentioned earlier. So you have large structures and the small structures. You're building food silos, resource generators, structures in order to build up your defense. You're building up ways to recruit more units onto your map. Northgard just seems like a very streamlined game with beautiful artwork and just really interesting gameplay that I can't wait to find more about. I will mention though that the combat does seem a little bit lackluster. It seems a little too simple for me because you are adding food that can increase the number of axes or strength in battle, and you're just counting the number of axes that you have present there, and then you roll a dice in order to generate some sort of randomness. And that's it. But the combination of every other factor going on that goes into combat, I think is what makes it very interesting. However, the next game on my list is gonna take combat up another notch. And number 4 is Hoplomachus Victorum by Chip Theory Games. Now for this one, Pluto is going wild. He is raging across the land and he's looking for a champion that can meet the challenges that he's going to throw upon everyone. I was very skeptical about this game, not gonna lie. I was very skeptical. Reason why is because it is a solo arena combat game. That doesn't sound the most interesting at first. However, when I demoed it, it is incredible and I am so excited for this game. Like aside from the obvious beautiful production value that Chip Theory Games always puts on, it just seems like a fresh take from all their other titles. In this game, you are traveling across 8 different regions on this map, and each event corresponds to different types of events. They could be full-on combat, it could be item control or king of the hill, or events that level up your traits. The progression system for your character in this game is really unique, and I love how it ties in influence from the big bad monster called the Scion. What captivated me the most about Hoplomachus is how when you defeat different units in the arena, you can actually recruit them later on, and that's essential because you're gonna take the units, the enemies that you defeat in battle, put them in your army, and then face off against mini bosses leading up to one final boss for the end of every single act. The tension, the progression is there because you have a limited amount of time to progress your character before you fight the Scion. And the Scion is also going to put influence on you as well, and that's going to trigger a cascade of negative events that's really gonna put your character at a tough spot for every battle. I also got to see a glimpse of how the Hydra fights, and it is insane. So once you like fight off one head, other heads will spawn and attack you, and it's so aggressive. The spawning mechanism for the Hydra is just so interesting to see how it develops. And there's even another boss that teleports you across dimensions, and how that works is the map will literally change as it teleports you across like the volcanic arena, the jungle arena, the ocean arena, and it is just wild. Another thing too, the item control that you mentioned, the arena that I saw, there was a trident. It was like an underwater arena. You can take that trident and throw it across to other enemies, and if you don't kill them, they're gonna take that trident and throw it right back at you. It is so freaking cool and fun, and I just cannot wait to dive into this one a lot more. Now, not all the games on my list is combat oriented. We're actually gonna take a step back and go all the way to the other end of the spectrum, a game that is much more likely to hit my table more often. Reason why is because it's going to be a lot more family friendly and a lot more inviting, especially when you hear about the theme. Number 3 is Flamecraft. You have worker placement with dragons. Now these dragons will visit different shops, they're going to cast enchantments, they're going to meet secret objectives of fancy dragons, and your goal is to gain the highest reputation by performing all of these said tasks. Here's what got me really invested in the game. Firing up dragons, which means activating their abilities. You can activate a tableau of dragons. Enchanting different shops, which is upgrading shops and then increasing the effects that you gain from them. And ultimately activating this engine builder, this dragon engine builder that's going to interact and cause a whole chain of different combos with dragon effects as you fire them up, a dragon tableau, worker placement, the shops having different effects. There's a lot going on here, and I'm so glad because it's not just face value, beautiful production, you know? You always have to look past that and see whether or not there is meat in this game, and there's a lot of meat in this game, literally, because there's also like a meat dragon and a baking dragon, and there's a lot of really cool dragons here that have a ton of different effects and synchronization across different combos. Again, I'm trying to be skeptical, trying to see past this beautiful production of a dragon cutesy themed game, but there's a lot of meat here. And there's a lot to unpack and a lot of combos to generate here in this game, so I cannot wait to finally get this game in my hands. And lastly, just wanted to give Bree from Lucky Duck Games a huge thank you for taking some time to demo this game for me as well, and I am so stoked for Flamecraft. Now, we took a little break from play interaction, confrontational play interaction, like where we're fighting each other, because in Flamecraft we're obviously not fighting, but more so we are gifting different resources and food to other dragon players. But here for my number 2, let's get back into that play interaction and into combat. Number 2 is Oathsworn. Oathsworn, put simply, blew my freaking mind. Jamie, who demoed this game for me, obviously is a very passionate gamer, and you can tell right away when someone's passionate about the game because they, A, will answer every single question you throw their way without any kind of hesitation at all. That's exactly what Jamie did. And B, you can just see their passion across every single facet of this game. It is incredible. So the production value is just so extra. I'm here for it. Like the houses, the one house that I saw is as big as my head. The miniature, aka statue, is like this big. It's humongous. And the monster statue that we fought like the mother rat. That thing is huge too. It's like an actual rat size. It's wild. And again, I'm here for it because the gameplay delivers. It would suck if all the miniatures were there and the production value was there, but the gameplay doesn't deliver. Let me tell you now, from that first demo, I guarantee you that the gameplay is going to be incredible because by the end of a 15-minute demo, me and a table of 3 other strangers were so invested, so immersed into this world. We were cheering for each other, and by the end of this combat, and it was just such a really incredible experience. Honestly, it was my favorite demo of the entire Gen Con, and it was so freaking cool. The combat is sharp as hell. So when you are fighting a monster here, and also there's no filler in this game, at least from the first chapter, no filler at all, because you are diving straight into fighting the mother rat. And what's really cool about combat is you get a choice. This is what's gonna blow your mind. You get a choice between drawing cards or rolling dice. And you can also draw as many cards as you want if you're the type that doesn't like that randomness in dice, or you can also roll as many dice as you want if you're the type that likes to roll dice instead. You can roll as many dice as you want, you can draw as many cards as you want. The caveat here is if you have 2 blanks in either the dice or the cards, then the amount of damage that you will inflict on the monster will be 0. But there are a lot of ways to mitigate that with different player abilities and different other effects that go on in the game that I haven't fully understood just yet. There's also this rotating engine you can play with up to 4 players, so it's not just solo only. And the boss fights, get this, have multiple phases. There was a part where after 2 players were damaging this rat, they were, bashing it with an axe and everything. The rat turns around, whips his tail, and bashes players against the wall, breaking their spine and taking them out of combat. It is insane. So the last 2 remaining players, I think One was an archer and I was playing as a priest. We were the last two remaining and we needed to draw and inflict enough damage to take out the rat. Spoiler alert, we did. But it was just a really fun, entertaining experience. I love being able to interact with the environment. I love the way combat is developing, this rotating engine build that you have in front of you. There's a lot going on, and I just cannot stop thinking about this game ever since I left that demo. If you know this channel, then you know that I, most of the time, cannot stand co-ops. But this is a co-op game that I am excited for. I just know that from the way the story is developing, from the way that you're interacting with other players and working as a team here, is just going to invite some very, very entertaining gameplay. And as a bonus, you also have physical swappable equipment, so you can take out different pieces and put them in. You can have different axes and bows and swords. This game is gonna be so good. Now, moving on to the final game on today's list, out of the top 5 of Gen Con games that I mentioned, reason why this is number 1, it's not gonna be a surprise at all, is because it is the successor to a game that I thought was the most perfect game that it can be. Dwellings of Eldervale was as close to perfect as I can get to any board game. My biggest question from the con was, how do you take a near perfect game and make it better? That, hopefully, I think is answered with Andromeda's Edge. Here's the thing. I'm not big on space. I don't own a single space-themed game in my entire collection. Still, to this day, as long as a gamer as I have been, I don't have any space-themed games. This is gonna break that in a heartbeat. What Peter, Brad, Mike, Luke, Lori, what their entire team is doing with this game is just incredible. This game is gonna knock your freaking socks off. This is also the only game where I got to hear some feedback from the playtesters there, and they were so excited for it, which in turn makes me 10,000 times more excited for it as well. One thing sold me about this game. I asked Peter, so what's different between the combat in Andromeda versus in Dwellings? And he said that Luke improved upon the combat in Dwellings in Andromeda. That was it. That's all I needed. I obviously thought the combat in Dwellings was fantastic. I didn't know what else you can change to really make it that much better. But in Andromeda, so again, take it with a grain of salt because we're talking about the prototype version here, and I'm also reinterpreting what I've heard from the convention. But supposedly, the units that you're gathering, so every faction has asymmetric ability. And originally in Dwellings, the dragons, the wizards, they all have their set abilities. But here, you can actually upgrade the abilities of your dragons, of your different starships, and you can mold the different units that you have into the asymmetric faction that you get. And one faction that I heard about was like the Spore faction, so they can like poison other starships. Even with a Spore faction, you can build and upgrade your units. Units will also have a range. So if your unit has a range of 1 and another one has a range of 2, you group them together, now they have a range of 3. So they can fire off 3 tiles away from where their original starting point is. That sounds so cool, and it's modular and you can upgrade different units like I said. There are way more asymmetric factions. There's a starship engine builder. The customization in factions just sounds super amazing. They have modular ships. And lastly, if you know Dwellings, there are prophecy cards. Those are like endgame objectives. And one issue that I think a lot of players voiced was that prophecy cards, they should be an endgame objective like on the board. And in Andromeda, that's exactly what happens. It sounds like they're listening to us, or at least if they didn't get that idea from us, that part of the gameplay is improved on top of a ton of other things as well. It's really nice to have endgame objectives as like part of the board where you can like buy them or gain them as you go on throughout the game versus having a set hand of magic cards and just discarding them and not really using them as often as you should be in Dwellings. Bottom line, I am just so incredibly excited for Andromeda's Edge. I will leave a link to the GameFound campaign down below. Make sure you're following it because I don't want you to miss out like on Dwellings. A lot of people missed out on Dwellings and have been messaging me and commenting on all the videos about where can I find Dwellings. Well, make sure you don't miss out on at least the sequel to Dwellings. This entire video is not sponsored. These are just games that I'm really genuinely excited about. And of course, Andromeda being number 1 on my list. So anyways, with that, I hope you all enjoyed this top 5 list. If I missed any games, please let me know down in the comments below. Let me know what you're all excited about. I know a lot of people were also talking about Turing Machine as well. That's a little bit out of genre for the type of games that I like, but I'm always open to playing a lot of different types of games. And with that, Wolfpack, I will see you all in the next video.